You know that feeling, right? The constant pressure, the endless rat race. Exams, promotions, that 9 to 9, 6 days a week grind. It feels like a totally modern problem. But what if I told you that a 2,500-year-old philosophy has been twisted to justify it all? And maybe more importantly, what if that same philosophy actually holds the secret to breaking free? Okay, let's get into it.
So, when you hear the name Confucius, what pops into your head? For a lot of us, it's this stuff, a super rigid system of blind obedience that just tells you to put your head down and do the work. But is that really the whole story? Or is it kind of a modern distortion, one that's been used to create a compliant workforce, and one that's leading us all straight to burnout?
And this, right here, is the core of what we're talking about today. On one side, you've got the myth, this kind of weaponized version of Confucianism that demands you sacrifice everything for the company. But on the other side, you have the reality, a deeply human philosophy that's all about cultivating your own inner character to, build a better world for everyone. Now, let's be real, this myth is powerful. I mean, it's been used by governments and big companies for centuries to enforce social pressure. It's basically the cultural software running in the background of extreme work cultures like 996, where your personal life and well-being get sacrificed for the so-called collective. Or, let's be honest, for the corporation. But here is where everything gets flipped on its head. Confucius wasn't trying to create a bunch of cogs for a machine, not at all. His ultimate goal was to help people become a Junzi, which you can think of as an aristocrat of character. And this was a totally revolutionary idea back then. The idea that true nobility doesn't come from your family name or your job title, but from your own moral journey. Okay, so how do you actually become this aristocrat of character? Well, Confucius didn't just hand down a strict rule book. Instead, he gave us a blueprint for personal growth, a kind of character code built on a few core virtues, all designed to make us more fully human. And it all starts with this idea of Ren. Now, this usually gets translated as benevolence, but it is so much deeper than that. The Chinese character itself is made up of the symbol for person and the number 2. It literally means co-humanity. It's this powerful idea that you can only become a complete person through your relationships and your compassionate interactions with other people. So if Ren is that internal feeling of compassion, then Li is how you actually put it into practice. A great way to think about it is as a social grammar. It's all the rituals, the etiquette, the everyday politeness that gives structure to our interactions. It's what turns our raw good intentions into something that actually creates harmony in society. And then there's Yi, or righteousness. And this one was the real kicker. This is your moral compass. It's that gut feeling, that intuition to know what is right versus what's just profitable or easy. And Confucius draws a really sharp line here. The Junzi, that ideal person, acts from righteousness. The small person, they act from profit. It's a direct challenge to a profit-first mentality. So when you put it all together, you get this amazing little toolkit for becoming a better person. Ren is your internal source code for compassion. Li is the external user interface that lets you interact harmoniously with others. And Yi is the ethical processor, making sure all your actions are driven by what's right, not just what's profitable. It's a whole system. So we've got this beautiful blueprint for building character. But here's where the story takes a twist. What happens when this philosophy gets exported? As it spread across East Asia, different cultures started emphasizing different parts of the code, and that created these totally distinct and sometimes clashing business ethics that we can still see playing out today. And this quote right here, it perfectly captures the core tension that started it all. Someone asked Confucius about a guy who reported his own father for stealing a sheep, and Confucius basically said, no way. He argued that real righteousness is found in family loyalty, even if it means bending the rules of the state. This one idea would go on to shape the ethical landscape for centuries. And this is where it gets really fascinating. You have one philosophy, but it leads to radically different results. In China, the heavy emphasis on family loyalty, called Shao, leads directly to the idea of Guanxi, these powerful business networks built on personal, family-like trust. But then you look at Japan. That same idea of loyalty got redirected. The old samurai virtue of zong, loyalty to your feudal lord, was basically transferred to the modern corporation. The company became the new clan, and loyalty to it could even come before family. And then in Korea, a focus on moral purity created these intense ethical standards for leaders, which you see play out in these really fierce, principled public debates.
And this, of course, creates a major clash in today's global economy. Guanxi runs on personal trust and doing favors for each other. It's relationship-based. But modern corporate governance, especially in the West, is built on impersonal rules and institutional trust. From that perspective, those same favors can look a lot like corruption. It's two completely different ways of thinking about trust, and both grew from the exact same philosophical root.
Okay, so let's bring all of this back home to right now. When you're faced with the insane pressures of the modern rat race, a system that a lot of people feel is rigged or just plain exploitative, what does this ancient code have to say? Well, the answer is surprisingly radical. First, let's talk about Tangping, which literally means lying flat. It's this movement, mostly of young people, who are just opting out. They're rejecting the burnout of the 996 work culture and the endless chase for more stuff. Now, it's often criticized, right? People call it laziness or a moral failure. But then you read what Confucius himself had to say. When the way prevails in the state, serve. When the way is lost, retire. Think about what that means. When society is just and things are working, yeah, you have a duty to participate. But when the system becomes corrupt, when it's lost the way, your duty is to pull back, to protect your own moral integrity. This just flips the whole narrative upside down, doesn't it? From a truly Confucian point of view, if the modern corporate world feels unjust and exploitative, then opting out isn't laziness at all. It's a principled act of self-preservation. It is exactly the choice a Junzi, that aristocrat of character, would make to protect themselves from a corrupting system. And that leaves us with a pretty provocative final thought. In a system that so often demands our endless sacrifice for the sake of profit, maybe the most righteous act, the most truly Confucian act of all, isn't to keep climbing the ladder, but to have the wisdom and the integrity to know when it's time to just lie flat.